Hello. Tuesday Truths features candid discussions of suicide and chronic pain, so please listen with care. Anyway, imagine standing on the edge. Dean Daniel did just that, throwing himself backwards off his top story home just a year ago. When we actually filmed this in December, so it was 9 months ago to me right now, but by the time this drops, it's going to be around a year ago. And it was believing he believed there was no other way out, right? Today though, it's a small bite-sized episode. Tuesday Truths is around 10-15 minutes long. It's pieces of part 1 and part 2 together, just to give you snippets of their journey, you know. We bring you the most powerful moments though. The crushing weight of his chronic pain, the silence men often carry, and the raw reality of survival. You'll hear Dean reflect on what it means to reach rock bottom, the courage it takes to ask for help, and how sharing your story and your journey and building Unbeaten, his brand, has changed his life and the lives of many others in less than just a year, and those who support and love him too. This is your reminder: vulnerability is strength, and hope is always within reach. Here's Tuesday Truths. Go back and watch part 1, and part 2 drops tomorrow. See you then.
So at the time, I was, like I say, it was a year ago. And at the time, I was basically, the house was locked down because the wife, the crisis team were involved, and everything was, put in place that I had to be monitored and checked and whatever. And I remember thinking, I tried to come off a lot of the medications because I was just sick of being a zombie, and I just stopped them. So then I'd had about 3 or 4 nights with no sleep, and it was just the thoughts and everything, and the pain accelerated, and I was just not in a good place. And I remember thinking, I need this to stop. I've got my wife sat next to me 24/7, bless her. She's got no quality of life. The kids are watching her dad's laying in bed. I was like, I'm not doing it. And it was just enough was enough. And I remember saying to Leanne, just nip down. And she nipped down I think she'd gone down to make a drink or something, or get some food or something. And as she did, I remember leaning over, grabbing my pain medication bag with all my tablets in, and just snuck out the house. And I knew what I wanted to do, and I could have quite easily done what I was going to do. And I won't go into it too much because it could be triggering for people.
Sure.
But I knew what I wanted to do, and as you can imagine, what I did do. But I wanted to be out the way. I didn't want my wife or the kids or anything to find me, so I took myself up into a wooded area, got a lot of alcohol on the way, and then obviously did what I did. And I was found by a couple walking the dog, and I don't remember much of it. As you can imagine, I took high levels of medications and a lot of alcohol. It was a really, really bad time. But at that point, that was me. I was done. It was like there's no going back. And I remember sitting there. I actually do remember sitting there and thinking, this world is a much better place without me. Everyone doesn't have to go through what I'm putting them through anymore. And then obviously I was found by the I look back now and I think, I'm so grateful that they came along and found me. Took it to hospital and rest, as you can imagine.
So there was a few months in between your first attempt and your second attempt. Obviously your mindset after the second attempt is completely different shift. What was the mindset like after the first one then? It probably seems fairly obvious because we know that you tried it again, but where was your mind in those next few weeks then?
So I'll be honest, and I always have, because if people really need to know how deep and raw it can be. So I remember being in the hospital and them saying to me, look, do you regret it, Dean? Because it's one of the questions that they always ask. Do you regret doing what you've done? And I remember looking at the nurse and thinking, no. I said, but in one way I do. And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I did do it properly. That's my regret. And she was like, oh, hell. And I went, the thing is, though, I've been brought up right. My mum and dad have always brought me up to do things the best of my ability and do everything right. So in my eyes was, I was doing this. I wasn't doing it for a cry for help. I wasn't doing it for, whatever else. I was doing it to end my life, and that was it. And there was no backup plan. There was no plan B. It was I was going to make sure I did it right, and that was that. So then for it not to happen, to be honest, I'll be honest with you, I was devastated because I still had to live this life, and that's how low it got. That's how, dark and lonely it was. Anyway, they had an agreement with my wife that they wanted to put me in, they wanted to section me. And they were like, well, if we're going to section him, you're going to have to put this in place, because obviously, the environment's completely different. At home, I've got like a bed that helps me get up and supports me and whatever else. I said, so, and they wouldn't have had that in this, in a secure unit. So my wife actually fought, was like, listen, just please, I'll support him at home if you can just keep him at home. We'll turn the house into, like I said earlier, Fort Knox, like a secure unit ourselves. Just don't put him in. So she literally fought my mum all supported her and were like, look, we'll just get him home. So to be honest, I just let them hear what they needed to hear. But I didn't want to be here. So my mindset was I was really adamant and really focused on not being here. And that's why when I say about these little alarm bells ringing, is because it was just at that point was that bell was ringing. And it was at it wasn't like this is a warning. This was literally all systems go. I was out to just not be here. I said, I'm okay. I said, I'm going to fight. I'm going to make a point. I'm going to come off my medications correctly. I'm going to make sure that I do everything properly. And I want to be here, and I want to prove to you that, I know it's not going to be easy, but I will show you that, I'm present and I'm here. So she was like, right, okay. So a few days later, she said that she'd noticed that I was picking up in my mood and whatever else. And she said to me, how are you feeling in terms of the incident and whatnot? And I said, no, I'm okay. I said, I'm just gutted and I'm upset that I've put you guys through it and whatnot. And I said, but I'm telling you, I'm going to get Unbeaten off the ground. I'm going to make sure that I've saved as many people as I can. So she was like, right, okay. She went, do you want me to show you something? And I was like, oh, here we go. And so unbeknown to me, we've got CCTV around the house. So unbeknown to me is the paramedics had asked Leanne if they've got the footage of me falling out the window or jumping out the window as such. So she said, I'll have a look. So she'd gone back in, gone on the iPad and brought it up, and they needed to see it in terms of injuries and how I landed and whatever else. So I didn't know this. And anyway, I'm laying in bed and Leanne says, I've got the footage saved on my iPad. Do you want to see it? And I was like, what? As you can imagine, I'm thinking, what? I don't know. So
but she seen it.
She had to see it. Yeah, she'd watched it, and I didn't realise. And obviously, I was in hospital, and she must have watched it with the paramedics originally, and she said it was just horrendous. So, but anyway, I laid in bed and I said, look, it took me a while. The stomach was turning, as you can imagine. I was sweating and thinking, do I want to see this? Because it's one thing seeing it on a movie, but seeing yourself, it was surreal. So anyway, I said, let's do it. I thought, well, it needs to be done in terms of recovery and a trauma stage to get over. Let's do it. So she passed me the iPad, and I remember looking down at it and just watching this footage of me jump out the window, and it was just surreal. It was horrendous, and there's no words for it, as you can imagine. And I looked and watched like my body, I won't go into too much detail, but just land on the floor and just look dead, and I remember looking and thinking, that was me. Have I done that?
Yeah.
And it took me back, and I just burst out crying. Leanne burst out crying, and I just looked at her and I said, but you know what? This stops now. This I promise you, that is going to be the last thing I put you guys through. And I'm going to fight and make this Unbeaten work and make sure that nobody else gets to the point that I got to. Nobody else gets to that level of, darkness, loneliness, and basically despair, really, of just, it's horrendous. Because when you can see it for yourself, and I mean, I can't imagine her watching it. If it was me, I couldn't imagine watching my wife jump out of a window like that. It would just break my heart. It would shatter it into pieces. It's hard enough to see yourself. So then I was like, she's strong enough to go through this, and she's strong enough to stick by me and go through everything that we're going through then. And that was like a massive changing point for me in terms of Unbeaten, because it gave me that fire in my belly. It gave me that like light to go, do you know what? I ain't letting anyone else get to this point. I'm just not, because I never thought that that person there who I've just watched jump out the window would ever do that, and I need to make sure that no one else does.
Does that charge your discipline and motivation in terms of what you're building in the community?
Yeah.
Does that vision stay in your mind to help you drive forward? Do you think
It's a big thing because it's scary. Because again, I keep saying it because I never thought it would happen to me, and there'll be many people out there that will think exactly the same, and you'll find out months later that they're no longer here, and you're like, like, we could save them. I know we can't save everybody, and I know, we're never going to eradicate.
You just mentioned there an accident happened at the gym. What happened there then?
So that was definitely the changing point, and as we said, the decline. So one evening, and stupidly, I look back now and think it's so silly, because I used to tell my clients, make sure you eat, make sure you drink, make sure you sleep, and you're prepared, ready to go. Like, don't come into the gym and you've not had any sleep and you've not eaten, because the risk of injury, there's risk, of all sorts happening within, your training session. So I remember, broke all them rules, and one evening I was just tired. There was a lot going on. I had not eaten, and I'd not slept the night before particularly well, and I'd gone into the gym and I was lifting, and stupidly lifted the weights up, unprepared, didn't have anything, just wasn't in it, wasn't there. I shouldn't have gone, but I did, as you do, especially when you're into your training and stuff, you don't want to miss it. And I went in and then felt a large, sharp pain in my lower spine. What was that? And then carried on the session for the next 1 or 2 reps, and then I thought, wow, dropped the weight and thought, God, this is getting increasingly worse. So the pain was getting higher and higher. Tried to lift them up again, do it again. I thought, wow, that's enough. It literally felt like someone had just ripped my lower back out and all down my leg. Anyway, cut long story short, ended up going into hospital, and they said, you need to have surgery. You need what I think they said there was an issue with the lower discs, and they were going to go in. And then that was the first surgery. So that was in the December, and I had the surgery in the January in 2018. And since then, it's just like you say there, it's declined and declined. I've had 9 spinal surgeries since, as we spoke earlier. Medications have just been ramped up, spinal injections, blocks, you name it, physios. I've had a spinal stimulator, which is basically like a computer built into your body, which shuts all your nerve pain off. And it's been a journey, and then it just kept as it progressed, it just got worse and worse.
So on a day-to-day basis, outside of the hospital visits and outside of these little, we talk about these things, don't we, as a significant events, but what's Dean's body like every day, going to work, getting up? Are you sore during that's a silly question, but you know what I mean? Like, is Dean functioning normal, but just got aches and pains, but you still need to get surgeries done? How's that looking for you every day in between all of that?
No, so I can't work. So this is me now. Everything I put into my life is unbeaten, and it's.
But from the first surgery, though.
But from the first one, it was.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes. So from the first one, it was a case of I was told that you got your recovery period, as everyone does. So then I was off work at the time. And then it was right, try and build yourself up, and you got your physio, you got your rehab and whatever else. But then, as you can imagine, within the space of 6 years, I'd had 7 surgeries. So every time I managed to get out of that recovery period, as they call it, something else would happen, and I needed to go back in. And I think where people don't realise that and I'll admit it, I never thought it would ever happen to me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
You look at 10 years ago now, if you'd have asked me, would I be, sat here thinking that I've gone through 2 attempts on my life and deteriorated as fast as I did from that point to this point, I would have said, don't be silly, like, that's not me.
Yeah.
Because I have got an amazing family. I couldn't wish for a better support group around me. I couldn't. And for it to happen to me is scary, because it's like, wow, that did happen. This is life. It's so easy to look on the TV or your social media and think, saw a poor young lad or young female's lost a life here, they've done this and this, I wonder why. There must be because of this, it must be because of that. Well, actually, no, it doesn't happen like that. And I'm like, say, and yourself is living proof of that if it comes, and when it does come, it hits you so hard that you just think, wow, what was that? And luckily, I'm out the other end, and I've survived. And although it's, I'm still having to go through a lot of pain and suffering moving forward, is that I say this all the time, is once them lights go off and it goes black, there's no coming back. That's it, it's permanent. Whereas each morning you wake up and you're here and you're present, things can get better, and they will get better. And again, I'm living proof of that now. Yes, is my life perfect and how I wanted to live it? No. But is it better than it was this time last year? 100,000,000%. And I need people to see that, and I want people to really realise that each day that you're here, each day that you're present, that you're here for yourself, for your family, is a successful day. And do you know what? I never used to get it, and I used to think mental health will just come, and then once it goes, like when I think it must have been in the June, July of this year even, I started to feel a lot better in myself, and the thoughts weren't there, the feelings weren't there, not the pain was still there, but the level that it took me to where I went from literally, Andy, to actively seeking to get out of the house, to how could I hurt myself, to the house was locked down into basically a secure unit. Otherwise I would have been in a secure unit. I should have been, the amount of times that they wanted to put me into a hospital, and my wife had fought it and said, please just let him come home. I'll look after him at home because of his back, because of his condition and his pain. It's not the environment that he's going to work with and he's going to thrive in. And if anything, to be honest, if I maybe had gone in, although these places are really good and professional and all that, it wasn't the place for me, and I would have deteriorated, and I would have just kept attempting my life. I know I would have. Now, although I've come back home and it put a lot of pressure on the family and whatnot, it helped in that way because I was at home. But again, I was in that mood of, why do I have to live my life like this? And I was, we had the whole house locked down, all the doors were locked, all the windows were locked, the knives and everything were put away. Even though I never had thoughts about that, the thoughts that I was having were so powerful and they were so dark that my wife had just literally had to strip the house bare and was like, look, anything that he needed, she was following me there, here, there and everywhere, and we can laugh about it. And I said, yeah, she was even in the shower with me at one point, and I was like, this has took 8 years to get to this point. Like, and now, we joke about it, and she's like, but the thing is, she didn't want to leave. She was literally she'd sit on the toilet while I was in the shower because she was that concerned that I would do something silly to myself. So when I got to that point where I was like, I'm not feeling like that anymore. I actually feel like I do want to be here, and everything's took off with the brand and my talks and everything else. It was like, oh, it's gone, mental health's gone. Oh, great, I'm okay now. Well, it's so wrong because and I always call them little blips because they do just come back, and you do get these, like for me, when the pain gets too high, like it is at the moment, my mind then starts to wander and goes back to that point where, here we go again. Is this the pain that is I was in a year ago when I wanted to not be here? Is this the pain that I have to now live with for the rest of my life? And your mind starts to take over, and it's such a powerful thing, your mind.
Yeah.
But again, you've got to fight that and think, well, no, do you know what? You're not having me. And again, that's all to do with Unbeaten. That I won't be beaten by these thoughts. I won't be beaten by these feelings, and I will carry on going, and I will keep fighting because it's what we need. Otherwise, unfortunately, the statistics are just going to keep getting higher and higher.
What you just witnessed is only a snippet of our amazing conversation this week. This is what Leading Our Own Way is all about. Real stories, real transformation. If you're watching this before Wednesday, part 1 dropped yesterday and part 2 releases tomorrow. But if you're already here after Wednesday, all parts are available now. Head to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and every other major platform and look for the numbers on the bottom left-hand corner of the episode's covers to start part 1. Trust me, you don't want to miss this incredible journey.